Hey y'all, it's Sarah, and today we are working on another pie. If you haven't guessed it, you can see a couple examples in front of me. And I am going to be trying blueberry pie today. And you can always do that with your Miniverse stuff. Just your Miniverse blueberries. But that's not what I'm using today because I tend to hoard my Miniverse ingredients a little bit. So I'm going to try it without those. I'm going to use something else, but I want to get started, so let's talk about it. First thing I'm using, because I don't want to use my Miniverse supplies and I don't want to use up my Miniverse, my one single little Miniverse pie that I do have, I'm using just some bottle caps that I smashed down and spray painted silver. So that's what I'm using as my base. For my dough or my crust, I'm using some cheap Dollar Tree Crafter Square modeling clay. And I'm using modeling clay because it doesn't dry naturally. It stays pliable. And I'm using resin to harden that. If I was to use something like Play-Doh or air dry clay, it might crack once it dries. So I haven't tried it that way, but I know that every time I've played with any of the Dollar Tree air dry clay, and they did have some for a while, I don't know if they still do, but every time I've played with that, I end up with cracking and stuff like that. So I'm using this, and then I'm going to cover it with resin in order to get it hard and stable. And if you've seen any of the other pie videos, I'll tap on that so you can hear it. So that's what I'm doing. You can do it your way, but I'm just kind of throwing some ideas out there to do similar things with stuff I have on hand, and usually it's Dollar Tree stuff. So the first thing I'm doing is rolling out my dough. And I just have whatever this little tube is to roll it out as thin and as flat as I could. And this is pretty thin. Maybe you can see. It's pretty thin. And I'm going to try to line it up on my pie pan somewhere along the edge, because I'm going to do like the little crosshatch type pattern on this, and these other little scraps I'm going to try to cut from here. So I just flip this over, and I'm doing it pretty much like you would a normal pie crust. I'm tapping it down in there so I don't rip it, since it is pretty thin. And I'm just going to try to pull this off of here, just like this. Now that I've got it out of there, I'm going to just use my fingers and soften those edges some. You could always take your craft knife if you want any of your pie pan to show a little more. You can always just take a craft knife and pull away some of that. But I like mine going pretty much to the edge. And if you want a basis of comparison, this is the pie shell for the Miniverse, and this is what I'm using. So it's fairly close to size. Hair difference, but I think these still work. And I feel like that's pretty good. We can always decorate our edges with just your fingers. You can pinch it up, or you can take a pair of tweezers and try to pinch it up, or you can just take something and try to dip in like that. I have found that I kind of like using the tweezers. And that just gave me a little bit more indentation. Plus, they helped me space it out a little better. And I'll end up doing this because I'm doing that crosshatch thing on the top. I'm not sure what that's called when you put the decorations over the top of your pie. I'll end up doing that, and I'll probably have to tweak these a little bit to get that to blend in. So right now that's good enough for me. I don't think I want too much perfection on my pie, or it might look a little more plasticky and less real. I've got some flaws and things like that in my other little pies that are sitting on my counter, and I think that gave them a little bit more realism. So I'm just spinning this around in my fingers to make sure my edges are decent. Okay, now let's get to adding a little color while it's still soft. And before I get my blueberries in, I'm just going to bring in some artist chalk. If you don't have artist chalks, you could always use something like this. You basically just want something that's got some mica pigment in it. I've got all these chalks that I can play with, and I'm not a pro at this, so I just kind of eyeball. I'm going in with just a brush, and I'm starting with yellow, and I'm not sure why I even start with yellow, but that's what my brain tells me to do. And I've got a pretty neutral color here. This is supposed to be the white clay that Dollar Tree has, but you can see it's kind of off-white. So I'm starting with yellow. And throwing that on there. And then I might come in with this little tan beige type color. And from the inside rim, I'm tapping that color in, and as I get to the outside rim, I might take it a little darker. I feel like maybe that's not pushed in all the way. Maybe you can start to see that pie crust look showing up. And along the outer edges, I'll take in with a little darker brown, maybe mixed in with my little yellow color, my golden color. And if you get it too dark or you don't like it, try going over it maybe with a lighter color and toning that down. Since this is uncured clay, it takes the color really well. Hopefully you can see how that's starting to look like a cooked up crust. Don't put your chalks too far away because we'll need them for the little strips, the crosshatch strips that go across the top, to get those all nice and toasty as well. So you can see them in comparison now. That's a big difference. Just to be silly, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to poke my little holes down in my pie crust. It does not matter. That is not going to change anything. I'm just doing it because I know when I do it in real life, that's what I do. So let's talk about what I'm using for blueberries. And I have not tested this. I've done this with cherry, and I've shared my cherry pie on some places, and I don't have it handy to show you guys. Turned out pretty well using this method. So I have this little container left of, this is filler. This is vase filler. They're little styrofoam balls that Dollar Tree has, and it comes in the multicolor, and this thing keeps dropping them. But you can see there's several different colors in there. There's red, blue, purple, green, and a yellow color. I've used the red, and you may have seen me use it for other things like small tomatoes, stuff like that. But I've got some blue ones that I pulled out, and you can see they are a little more faded in comparison. When you look at the mini verse ones versus those, they're definitely a bit of a color difference. So to offset that, I'm going to be adding probably some blue chalk. If you've got some really bold blue eyeshadow, you could always add that. Anything close to that mica type material, that dry powdery material. You can use alcohol inks too if you wanted to. I just don't happen to have any in blue. I only have neutral colors. So I'm going to try to get my pie filling looking a little more blue. Even though, I have to be honest with you, I do kind of like that variation of color that these things seem to have, because it almost looks like real blueberries if it was just a little bit darker. It's got, I don't know if you can see, I've done similar to these. Might not be able to see in the package. I've rolled them around in my fingers with just some white marker ink in my fingertips and rolled them around and gave them kind of a frosted look. And threw them back in the package to dry so that I could have those kind of frosted looking blueberries. I don't know if I have, oh, yes I do. There's an example right there. So, but I'm going to use these. I've already picked them all out. I am starting with the blue Raz. You see, just the Miniverse blue Raz. And I'm going to try, I'm going to move my pie so I don't get any blue pigment on it. I'm going to try with a couple of different shades of this blue. And I'm spilling blueberries everywhere. Look at that. So I'm doing this dry at the moment so I can mix those berries around. I might need a larger mixing bowl for this. Usually I do my resins just in this little container when I want to mix a specific color resin, and it works really well. However, I might need an actual mixing bowl for this because I feel like this is going to be too full to stir around. I've got some of that powdery pigment mixed in there now. I stirred it around to coat it. I'm going to mix it in with my resin as well, probably. Not sure how bold this blue resin is going to be. This one is not very bright. Ooh, that is a pretty color blue though. I have not done a lot of the drinks. I just didn't have a lot of places to use the different drinks. Most of these go in either my doll houses or my son's food court that I did for all of his mini brand stuff. So I've got this bright blue that I'm shaving down into there. And I'll probably throw a little bit more of the dark in. Let's start stirring it around and see what color we've got. I'm just going to use a popsicle stick and mix that around. So you want to stir it really good so the pigment mixes in with your resin. That is still a very bold blue, but look how pretty. I would almost even want to throw maybe a tiny bit of purple in there. Just a little, just to darken it up and almost make it syrupy looking, but look how pretty that blue is. That definitely already made an improvement. I don't think I have a really good dark purple, so let's go in with the dark blues again. All of my purples and my chalks seem to go along this line. So we're going to go with this almost navy. I feel like that blue has some green to it, maybe. Just going to dust that in there. Oh my goodness, look at that color. Isn't that pretty? And now you can see those styrofoam balls absolutely look like little blueberries. Wow, that is such a pretty blue. I know the camera doesn't always get super accuracy, Ooh, I can't wait. I think I definitely made a little extra in my pie filling. I could probably make 2 pies out of this. You don't really need that much. These pie pans are not all that deep. But I've got a second pie crust over here, so I could end up making 2. And I've grabbed the wrong one. Let's get that one. Oh, so pretty. I'm so tempted to touch it with my fingers, and I know better because I do nail stuff, and I do not want to create a resin reaction in my skin. This is probably the hardest part to this, is to get them all to stay there. These are really lightweight foam balls. So it takes a little patience. But if you're doing miniatures, that means you must already have some really good patience to work at this scale. Oh, so pretty. Maybe it's not too much. Look at there. I'm trying my best not to get the blue all over the sides, but that is what I said about I didn't strive for 100% perfection looking on my pie crust and things like that, because I felt like it made it look more like a real home-baked pie. I am absolutely loving this color. Just love it. So, you can hear I get all quiet when I concentrate. That's when you know I'm focused. I'm just moving those around now that they're kind of in there. I'm moving them around to get it filled in and even. Oh, it's so cute already, even like that. I've got a little bit of rubbing alcohol here on the edge of a Q-tip, just a hair. See if I can clean some of that edge up a little. Although I am kind of a fan of embrace your mistakes because you learn from them, or a lot of times those mistakes can add more detail that you wouldn't have thought of adding had you got it perfect. I've got my pie filled in and ready to pop it in my oven for a run. And when it's done, I should be able to have it hardened enough that I can go in and add all my little decorative strips. Now that my blueberries are pretty much stuck in place, I can jump back over here and start making my little strips. I'm just using a craft knife and hoping I can get it pretty straight. Oh, that's not too bad. Doing my best to keep them fairly even. These are definitely going to be long. And I don't even know how many I'm going to need at this point, but I'll cut a few. I don't think I got them super even, but let's see how they look anyhow. I can always cut some more. Pick this up. And try to lay it across there very gently. Fortunately, I don't have to worry about knocking any blueberries loose or getting any of the blue pigment on anything now. Now, mind you, The edge crust is still soft. I haven't put anything on that. I won't do that until the very end. I'm just trying to lay them somewhat even in place. See if I can pick another one of these up. Hopefully I can get some kind of lattice work going here. I may need another strip. I feel like these two are a little skinny compared to what I've got going here. If I cut this one in half, actually, let's just see if I can use the scrap off of one of these. Is it long enough? That may not be long enough. These might, though. That's where I've got them applied, and I'm coming back in with my tweezers. I'm trying to smush those into that original crust. That one might be a little crooked. Move him over a little. And I was able to cover some of my little blue spots there, so that was nice. I'm going to push those down onto my blueberries and then pinch off these edges. Might be easier if I do it this way. I've got those pushed down. I'm coming back in now with my brush and adding pretty much just the same colors that I did before. A little of that yellow. As I do these, I'm trying to come in right along the edge of that dough and darken those edges a little bit more. Got to come around the edge again. Okay, now that I've got some pretty decent color on there, I've taken a little bit of just the clear resin, and I'm going to add a little pinch of baking soda, just regular baking soda. And I do mean just a little pinch to mix it in there, and that's going to give that resin a matte finish instead of the shine. And just stir that around in there with a brush. You can see it's still pretty clear. And I'm going to start brushing that on my crust. This is what's going to help it harden. Not wanting to get much of it on my blueberries because it'll give them a matte finish too. And I want them to kind of glisten in there. But I am trying to get all the edges because this is going to harden all these little lattice work strips also. You might find yourself needing to coat it more than once. I'm going to run this through my oven. So I ended up doing the matte finish a couple of times over it to kind of harden those thin strips across the top. And I had a little bit of the shiny resin that I had spilled here on my countertop. when I went to make my mix. So I tapped a little of that in just a couple spots. Nowhere major, just a couple little spots. I tapped a little bit of the shine and then left everything else matte. And this is my end result. And let me find something to tap on it with so you can hear it. Let's hold it up. So you can hear that it's hardened. And it almost feels a little rubbery. I don't know how long these will hold up, but they're fun for me to play with. I didn't use a whole lot of supplies. These are all things that I had on hand. And so far, I've already dropped a couple of them because you guys have seen I'm a little clumsy. But I've dropped a couple of them. They came out of it okay. You could always come in if you've seen the video for the meringue or the fluffy resin. I still have a little sitting here. I could always come in and harden a little there on the top. I think I'm going to leave this one. I know I did that with my cherry pie and put a little whipped cream on the top, but I think this one I'm going to leave as is. And one other little tip for you when you get to this point, because you guys know that if you've watched any of mine that I'm a little obsessed. This is just a Dollar Tree furniture scratch marker in the light wood color. You can see I've hit a couple spots with it. I might hit a few more spots just here and there. Maybe use it to blend in some spots that I didn't push down as even as I might have liked. Might hit right along those very edges of my lattice work. And I'm going to let that sit for a few, and it'll end up taking that ink really well. You can see how tasty that actually looks. And that's all I wanted to share with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed all the different pies and some of the ideas and things to look around in your junk drawers, in your craft stash, in your craft room, and use some of those with your Miniverse stuff, because the resin is what made all the difference on making this a little more of a permanent piece. But that's all I wanted to share. Hope you got some ideas from it. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.